Okay, I hope that first little still works for my video after I upload. Anyway, this is my second attempt at going live because it just didn't work out the other day. So we're gonna talk about Leo season today. We're gonna get into it. I'm gonna get straight into it, right? What's up for anybody joining? And I'm just starting. We're gonna talk about everything Leo season, including this impending Mercury retrograde, because we're in the shadow period right now. We have a new moon coming up on the 4th. Chiron retrograde also started on the 26th, right? And so we have a few different things going on, making this Leo season interesting, right? Interesting. Happy Moon Day. I don't even know what it's Sunday? No, it's Monday. Happy Moon Day. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about Leo season. Some of the basics, and then what's the flavor like for right now. Well, I mean, it's really important that we're in this Chiron retrograde, right? Because Chiron retrograde, Chiron in general, if you don't know the story, simply put, it's about your core wound. In your own chart, when you see Chiron, you're identifying your own core wound. Something that can never be healed. It's a humbling kind of asteroid, because it's an asteroid, right? And so with Chiron going retrograde, this is a humbling kind of experience with Chiron. And it's in Aries. What else is in Aries, right? The North Node, the destiny, the collective destiny, and personally, where we all individually can get the most growth right now is if we focus our efforts on wherever Aries is in our chart. But Aries being, how can we redefine who we are and who we want to be, right? Because we're all being asked to make some serious edits in our personality, in our life, and in what we fight for, right? In what we fight for when it comes to ourselves and our relationships, where we've been doing this big dance. We've been doing this dance in terms of relationships and letting go. Because I don't know if y'all have noticed, like I have noticed, which was to be expected. I'm glad you're getting the confirmations. I hope they keep coming. But there've been lots of big breakups, right? Lots of big coming togethers as well for a lot of people out there. And last season, Cancer season, was kind of rough for, I believe, most people because it was squaring the nodes, right? So right now, we're in a position which is not so harsh, except for the fact that we're gearing up for all of this other energy, the Mercury retrograde coming up, right? While Venus then goes into Virgo, which is a mercurial sign. So I'll talk about that in a second. Let's see. Closest friends. Right, just broke up with closest friends and other things coming together as you release attachments. Yeah, it's good if you're in a place of release, especially with grace, having grace on yourself, and also grace knowing that, you know, there's something else emerging, right? That there's a making room. And sometimes it isn't about thinking too deep about it. It isn't really about going too far long term right now with our plans and our visions and our goals. We can see that because Saturn is retrograde, right, in Pisces. And we also have Neptune retrograde in Pisces. And this Pisces energy being very nostalgic. Now that we have come into the Leo energy, which Leo energy it inconjuncts the sign Pisces. And so there's a lot of reevaluating what's left in our heart, right? And what are we loving on? Who are we loving on? And, you know, whether or not it's a reflection of ourselves, because Leos are incredibly nurturing. I know we like to say that Cancer is the nurturer because it has a lot to do with the mom and the mother. But Leos, if you know a Leo, they just have the biggest hearts, right? Shout out to my Leos. Happy birthday to my Leos. They have the biggest hearts, and they are the sun, ruled by the sun, meaning that they shine very bright. They want to be seen, but they don't just shine for themselves, right? I mean, the sun, without the sun, we wouldn't really be here on the planet. We need the sun. And so we take in what the sun is giving out, and that matters. There's a dance there. And Leos, they do it because they want to, right? When they are giving to other people, and they are taking care of other people, propping up, being your hype man or woman, they feel good in seeing you shine, right? They really want their light being reflected back onto them. And so there's an energy of looking at our egos, of course, which has a lot to do with how we shine, and whether or not we are living from a place of a productive ego or a destructive ego. That's two different concepts, right? Because you always need your ego. That's true. You need this part of you to tell you that you're special, that you have a gift, that you have a talent. You need that push, right? And we need to feel the need to go out there and do things and not just conform and be like everybody else, in a sense. So your ego is a healthy tool. And I think with this Chiron retrograde, as well as the other retrogrades that we have going on, it's making us understand where it is that our ego is playing out, where it is that our dream has been manifesting and not manifesting. And then really looking around you, especially when we get to the Mercury retrograde, which starts on the 5th, we're going to have that extra energy in Virgo. And so there's going to be a need to look at all of the details, Venus in Virgo, especially in terms of relationships again, and do this kind of self-editing, right? Because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm ready to cut everybody out, and you make that change. That's great. But then what happens is you're left with yourself, and that period isn't talked about a lot. When you let go of people that you know are not good for you, no longer, like, it's just not aligned, right? Like, it's a great place to be, but then you have to sit in that either isolation or some kind of, loneliness of some sort, right? And you can either be really positive in your reflection while you're looking at yourself and saying, what is it about me that was also not doing myself justice or everybody else justice, right? And so when we're seeing Chiron retrograde, which is going to be retrograde until December. So we're going to be feeling the effects of Chiron for the rest of the year, as well as Saturn. And you might just start to feel like, okay, I see where I was wrong as well. I see where I need to make that change before I let new people into my life. I see how I need to do this extra kind of work, so to speak, in order to align myself with a more peaceful, productive version of whatever my ego is. And use it as a tool more, right, then latch onto it like it's your persona, because that's like the major difference. It's remembering that your ego is just a part of you. It doesn't make up who you are. It's not your personality. It's not your full personality. So you do have to have this little bit of a detachment. And I think the beginning of Leo season, the reason why, maybe for some it's probably been great, but for most we're feeling some kind of tension, and that's because the sun has been opposite of Pluto at 0 degrees in Aquarius. And that opposition is is not fun because anytime there's opposition, it means that these two things are looking at each other dead in the eye, like having a face off, right? And the sun and Pluto looking at each other like that. Pluto's going, so what have you given up, right? Like, what else do we need to let go of? And the sun, which is your light, you can feel kind of like there's a part of your light being destroyed. And that's probably true. And I think the best thing to do is to move through this gracefully, because it isn't actually the easiest Leo season. It kind of isn't. Now, first and foremost, we have the new moon coming up on the 4th, right? So with that new moon in Leo, of course, and I'm going to go back to the 4th just to get it exactly, tell you the degree. How did we get here? Let's go to new moon in Leo at 12 degrees. So when we are looking at this new moon in Leo, okay, it keeps pausing. I feel like this is definitely shadow Mercury retrograde energy at its finest. For some reason, it's like I just can't get this month's energy out seamlessly. All right, if I get another pause, I might just have to end it and come back. Hey, Laurel. So, okay, like I covered, the sun entering Leo season was opposite of Pluto. Okay, great. So that's like a big oppositional force. And it definitely is throwing people off when it comes to like the joy that we're supposed to be experiencing in Leo season, which second to Gemini season, Leo season is like my second, just because there's always something to feel good about. There's a lot of action happening and you get to go out and feel your best and look your best, right? But that's mostly going to get paused this season, and we're going to have to understand where we're being triggered, understand where we need to continue to edit that, because if we're not, we're going to be carrying it on to other relationships, right? Other very important relationships that are trying to come in. What we do have, though, is that this moon at this time, around the 4th and the 5th, it's also going to be sextiling Jupiter in Gemini, which is nice. And that's great because Jupiter and Gemini influence is probably one of the best things we got going on. So although, and I've talked about this before, one of your strengths at this time is going to be able to laugh at life. Laugh, especially during this Chiron retrograde, which should be less about sitting in our wound and reminiscing and being like, woe is me, right? It's less about that. It's more about how can I truly let it go and make light of what I've been through so I can help others heal, right? This Chiron retrograde is really important for healers of all kinds, and I think a lot of people are going to get awakened to that part of themselves, like their true strengths around being themselves, right? And a lot of the bullshit is going to get cut around that as well. There's going to be this grand acceptance that I feel like Leo season is helping us usher in, with just sitting with whatever the circumstance is in our life and being grateful for exactly that, knowing that like we're living a life that's uniquely ours. And also, one of the big messages I've been receiving and being reminded of is that your purpose is just your presence, right? So your purpose is just being and existing, but being and existing in your truth, not your lies, right? This is what this Chiron retrograde is going to help us do, because I think a lot of the times we don't even realize how much we've strayed far from ourselves. And sometimes you need that reminder. through whatever happens in your life at this time, to show you like, hey, this is something that you've been overlooking. You think that you're being yourself, but in reality, you're working still from this wound that you actually have healed. So how can you let go of the attachment to suffering, right? Because there is suffering on this planet. You're not going to completely get rid of that. But one of the gene keys that I had I think it's on my story right now, right? If I didn't post it, I'm gonna look for it and post it again. But it explains suffering as, you have to trust your ability to suffer. You have to trust that your heart, Leo, right, is able to take on and is going to take on only what it can handle. So even if you feel lonely or like your heart is breaking or whatever the case may be, right, whatever pain is happening, you can handle that amount of suffering. And you have to go through that, and you have to almost want to go through the suffering, but not in a sadistic way, right? Not in a, oh yeah, because I'm so horrible and I deserve this. Not in the insecure way, which sometimes is the lower vibrational or the dark side of Leo. They can be very hard on themselves, right? Very like insecure because everyone is watching and they know that and they're very conscious of that. But you don't want to inflict pain on yourself. You want to minimize the suffering by only going through what's necessary. When you find yourself in a place where you are kind of like hitting in like yourself in the wound, like stabbing yourself a little bit more just to make it hurt more, you gotta, not just you have to, I think you're going to, while Chiron is retrograde and while Mercury is retrograde, sit with that and figure out those tiny, minute details that are so easily overlooked. Now, Venus in Virgo, right? And the Mercury retrograde. Let's go to the Mercury retrograde, right? In Virgo as well. This is one where we're going to be very picky, extremely. I think by the end of Leo season, what it is like we're gonna understand what more we want for ourselves, and in a very like what's gonna seem like overly critical way. So we're gonna know what we want. We're probably gonna be real bougie by the end of this season too, right? Our bouginess is definitely gonna come out because our worth is going to be upped, and our value, our sense of our value is going to be pushed forward. And so we are going to be looking at ourselves like, I deserve a little bit more. I deserve to give myself nicer things, and I deserve to live a life and to be in relationship with people where, we're both working just as hard, or we're both propping each other up, whatever the case may be for you that you start to realize. And Venus in Virgo is great because, even though this is like where Venus doesn't like to be, Venus doesn't really like to be in Virgo, it's you finally getting to harmonize the everyday life in a very Leo bougie way, right? So we get to kind of glamorize the practical everyday needs and everyday mundane reality. And it is going to feel like a little bit more, enjoyable. So this is a time where you'll find yourself trying to look cuter, even just going to sleep. Like, wear your fancy PJs every night. And like, when you're going outside, wear your expensive sunglasses, even though you're just going to work, right? And you're not going anywhere fancy. It's because it's time to feel worth it, right? And with Chiron retrograde, with Mercury retrograde, we're gonna see where we're just not doing that for ourselves. We're gonna see those little details of where we're actually insecure and where we're actually not fully embracing, right? Because remember, Chiron retrograde is in Aries, and it's all about how we define ourselves right now. This is a big time where we get to be selfish, and during this particular season of Leo, we get to be extra selfish. But with that being said, it's selfish in a very loving way. Like, we're finally going to be able to, because last season we were supposed to be able to harmonize what we want with our family wants. And by family, it doesn't have to just be blood. It's like whoever you consider family, right? It's like, are you like growing in parallel unison with the other people around you positively? And now this season, now that we've hopefully been able to understand maybe where we need to slow down or speed up, now we're kind of like, okay, cool, there's no reason not to enjoy life, even though I still have this pain, even though sometimes this thing still hurts. Once again, how do we laugh at it? Even in those relationships, how do we look back at the things that once really hurt you in terms of your relationships and say, wow, that was some real character building shit right there, right? And make it funny again, right? Because it doesn't have to be so intense. It doesn't have to always feel like you're on this never-ending quest to reach a goal in order to give back to yourself. There are no actual goals in that. Your purpose is just being. The only thing you have to do is try your best. And if you're trying your very best, that's reason to celebrate. That's reason to feel good. And with this new moon on the 4th and 5th, I really want you to ask yourself, like, what is the biggest thing that you're quote unquote calling in, manifesting, working towards in this next year? And sit with the feelings that come up, right? The fears that come up with it, the insecurities that might come up with it. And then let that shit go during that new moon, because what you want to set in stone is that, yes, it's there. I will suffer as much as I need to suffer through this experience to learn as much as I need to learn, but I'm still going to love myself more than I hurt myself or hate myself, whatever the case may be. And that's big, right? So your mind, what you're thinking, especially after the 5th, because the new moon is on the 4th, Mercury retrograde starts on the 5th, including Venus in Virgo. So basically most of Leo season, we're feeling this kind of earthy presence, right? A lot of earth energy. Uranus is still in earth sign Taurus, helping us change our foundation. Your foundation being anything material that you've been working on, savings, stocks, a house, wherever you're living, right? Whatever you're building, right? Truly materialistically, even your body, for example, right? Taurus really rules that. We're getting more opportunities randomly, seemingly randomly, to elevate, right? Or to change, to just change. But the height of the elevation, so to speak, that you can receive in the opportunities to change, hope you're following along, I hope that makes sense, is determined by how much love and celebration you're giving to yourself through these periods of huge letting goes, right? Sometimes even betrayals, because remember, Leo season is drama, okay? So there will be no short of drama. But remember, drama is entertaining. And we have to remember that a lot of this feels incredibly dramatic in the moment. Even the things that you're just contemplating on. So there could be nothing happening this month for you, crazy, right? But you're thinking so in tune, so like detailed in a way where it's so dramatic. Like everything you're feeling is so dramatic because you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I need to, tone it down a little bit. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to be feeling that. Now, the one thing about this retrograde that I want to warn y'all is don't get too caught up, though, in these details. You might stumble across a detail and you might go, oh my God, this is it. I can't move forward until I figure this out because nothing is ever going to work if this doesn't happen. This is where we get to discard that thinking. We do have to bring it to the surface, though, in order to truly discard that kind of thinking, because once again, it's about identifying the insecurity or the fear around it, and where we're not able to open our heart, where we're not able to let love in and love more. Especially in terms of relationships, right? You can be in the heat of like an argument. Are you able to give yourself that reality check that like, hey, the person I'm arguing it with right now, I actually love, so I don't want to close myself off. I don't want to get more mad. How can I de-escalate my feelings right now to get to a place of regulation so that we can just move forward? And especially when you want to create long-term relationships of all kinds, family members, friendships, whatever, even business partners, right? And you're coming to those places of disagreeing. How do you remember your commitments? And how do you make things light? Jupiter and Gemini. There's a lot of ways we can make things light right now. There's a lot of times where you might even feel yourself being able to laugh at yourself, but it's like you don't want to laugh at yourself in front of that person because you don't want to make them feel like they won, right? You don't want to give them like the satisfaction of, oh yeah, you're right. This is where those parts of us need to die, right? We need to be able to go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's not that big of a deal, whatever, right? And remember that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not be seen at your best. It's okay to have those insecurities and talk about it. It's okay. It's okay. And you're not always going to be your best. So in order to continue a real relationship of any kind, not just with yourself, right, but even with yourself, you need to be able to go through those lows in also a heart-centered way. And that's what this Chiron retrograde in Leo season especially is going to be about. When we leave Leo season, we go to Virgo season, we'll still be dealing with these retrogrades, but with a different flavor. Right now, it's about staying open-hearted and infusing lightheartedness while feeling into the void space that we have in our hearts, wherever we feel a little bit lonely, wherever we feel a little bit sad, wherever we feel like even anything could be lingering there, frustrations, disappointments, whatever comes up from your past, because a lot of that is going to come from the past. And we are having a chance to really dissect it. And I promise you, if you have some conversations, like if you go to therapy, right, and you have like a good therapist or like a really good friend, somebody that really is verbal and intellectual, and or even like just emotionally centered, it's a great time to talk about these things. Let somebody help reflect with you, because remember, the sun is reflective. So talk about it, get those things out there, be a little bit vulnerable, and allow somebody to pick at your flaws a little bit and tell you what they see, and tell you if they think, maybe this is what's really happening. Listen and pay attention to those things, because there's a lot of gems to be found in that healing journey, which, yet again, even though it's a healing journey, you're still meant to cut through all of that and be present. Remember that you're living your purpose, you're doing the best you can, and you're supposed to just be having fun. You're supposed to just be having fun. So then on the 14th, right before the full moon in Aquarius, right, which I'm going to go to right now, because the full moon in Aquarius is going to be on the 19th, as well as a Jupiter squaring Saturn. That's something to talk about. But right before that, Mercury will enter Leo, and it's already going to be retrograde. This is probably where we'll see more of the drama if we allow ourselves to continue to get triggered by the past, right? We're going to be very loud about it. We're going to be very hurt. We're going to be talking from those places of insecurity if we're really like letting it get to us, right? Of course, you know, the exes or the people of the past might show up with these grand gestures, even like if it is a friendship that just ended. You might have those people coming in all of a sudden with the drama, or this love bombing kind of thing happening. Stay clear of all of that. Also, don't be the one to love bomb anyone at this time. Just don't do it, because you're going to regret it, because it's going to be extra and it's not really going to be real. Right? So keep that in mind. And then I'm going to go to we're going to go to the 19th so we can talk about this full moon. So even though we already had a Sun and Pluto opposition, right? As in Sun in Leo Aquarius opposition. The full moon is now going to be another Leo Aquarius opposition. But it's going to be with the moon, our emotions, right? So it's going to feel like one part of you is like, just stay by yourself. Be a loner, right? The loner might be triggered in you a little bit. I don't want to see nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody. But then a part of you is like, no, but we have to go out there and we have to see people and we have to show up. Now, it's a tricky place to navigate because full moon energies are always these two dualistic type of feelings, and the point of full moon is to like merge the two, right? And I think we're doing a lot of merging. We've been doing a shit ton of merging. So when we get to that full moon energy, right? Here I am. I'll be at 27 or 28 degrees. Let's see, 27 degrees. Right? That's like right at the end of Leo and Aquarius. And so Mercury is going to be right trailing behind. Retrograde right behind the Sun. Before this full moon, we also have a Sun and Mercury cazimi, meaning the Sun and Mercury like meet up, but it's during retrograde once again. Very things coming to the light in a way which we cannot ignore, and it's going to be directly about how other people see us in terms of how we see us. So this full moon will be about continuing the release of people, but probably because there has to be more, like, even if you've already done your cutting off, there's just gonna be a little bit more that has to be done. So don't expect things to be just completely over, and keep yourself in a state of, remember, heart-centered energy, right? Remember to come in it with love. And if there is still closures that need to be had, in order to let go, these closures will come up around this retrograde with the full moon. And so we have to show up authentically and individualistically, in a sense, right? And there will be a natural detachment towards our emotions, meaning we'll be very intellectual around this time. We won't feel so triggered, right? We'll be able to like take a glance at ourselves through the third type of view, right? Third person view. We'll be able to sit there at the side and look at what's happening, and really, yet again, get to these important understandings, these important big revelations that we need to have of where we're the problem, of how we allowed ourselves and our egos once again to take on too much of the work. So I have there's a practice that I did years and years ago, but it still stands true. Through my deep rabbit hole work where I was really working on myself, I found this like kind of workshop practice thing where you and your ego write out a contract of how much control that the ego has over you, right? So I would invite everyone to do that kind of practice on this full moon. Basically, you're saying to your ego, number one, thank you for always looking out for me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for caring, right? And doing so much work. But you don't have to do so much work anymore. And I promise you that I've learned my lessons. I can take over now. So you want yourself to come through versus those mechanisms that have been built up for so long that feel like they are who you are. This is our chance to redo that kind of contract with yourself and kind of state out and write out, because it's definitely powerful if you write it out, and I think like when I first did it, it was like, okay, I see where my ego has been in charge, where I've been overworking that part of myself, and I want to take away 50% of that responsibility from my ego, right? So that's basically the contract, and you sign it as your ego, you sign it as yourself, and you just sit in that presence and that being. For most of you, it probably doesn't sound strange. It's like, okay, cool. To some people it might sound strange, but I invite you, sit with that and see what comes up. You're gonna notice where I think we all have a little bit of a God complex in us to some certain extent, right? Where we feel more righteous than other people around us, or just more right. And so this is where we're gonna get humbled while also feeling empowered. That's what I like about this kind of full moon. It's a humbleness, but it's an empowered place where we're like, oh, okay, I do have a responsibility to these people of my past to allow them to heal. By just simply showing up and telling my truth, even if it doesn't look like they're healing, even if it looks like they're hurting, it's putting them on the path where they need to be, because the truth kind of over trumps a lot of our personal opinions or views. This is like people who have been in relationships where they've like cheated or something, right? But they never told their partner. This is like you getting a chance to tell them that, even if you're not together anymore, and saying, hey, you know what? This is the truth. This is what happened. This is how I was really feeling. This is what really happened. And even though one part of you is like, I don't want to hurt that person, you kind of have to, because everybody needs these realities, or else we're living on a foundation of all these lies. And what happened here, that won't happen. And it might come with a lot of seeming criticism, right? In some sort of way, where that Venus in Virgo is being very nitpicky. But it's okay. Save all of these details because they matter. And embrace this opposition as we get into that full moon, right? And then the Jupiter square Saturn is what I'm going to talk about last, because Jupiter, right, squaring Jupiter in Gemini, squaring Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Now, in order to expand, we have to contract at times. And this is exactly that, because Saturn is more about contracting, where Jupiter is exactly about expanding. And so both are happening simultaneously. Okay, hopefully that was a firecracker. Right? Both are happening simultaneously, and Saturn is forcing us to take some steps back, or to like release a lot of work that we're doing overly too much. We could just be taking on way too much. And I think a lot of people are going to realize that, like, your dream life, your perfect romantic world that you really want to live in, you might be overly working towards it, where it's actually putting you further away from what you want. Because once again, the big overall message with this is your purpose is about being, and that there's a lot of branches from that purpose of being, which requires actions and all these other things, but we have to like come back to that stable place where we are more evaluating the work that needs to get done instead of actually doing the work. I hope that makes sense, because that is where we're going to be feeling with that square, because that square is going to cause a lot of tension, where we feel like, okay, I might be having some good conversations right now, but they just feel like conversations and they don't feel like reality. But of course, those conversations are great because there's going to be a lot of good opportunity to brainstorm, and brainstorm possibly with new people about new ideas and new projects that may not be getting executed or even truly started right now. But it is great to have those conversations. It's great to go into like the next year and say, these are the big things I want to see happening for myself. Like, let me get together the team of people that I actually think would be great for this, and let's actually have an equal brainstorm sesh on what we want to accomplish here. We can see a lot of fruitful things come out of that. That will take a little bit longer. Saturn retrograde in Pisces, then, you know, there's no need to rush. Anytime you, it's all right, but we can't feel like we're rushing, because then we're taking ourselves out of divine alignment. At the end of the day, we want to get situated with being the right person and find and walk into the right place at the right time. Okay, I hope that makes sense, right? Divine timing is about syncing up all of these parts, right? The circumstance, the event, with who we are. Because if we're not exactly ready for it, or we're not exactly there yet, or it's not really thought out, us setting a date for something is counterintuitive, because it's kind of like saying, yeah, you better get ready by this time. But we don't know that. We have to feel it, we have to see it, we have to integrate it, and we have to be it. That's the most important part. So it's okay if you don't have anything finalized in terms of projects that are a little bit maybe long term, because these are bigger visions that you have for yourself of how you want your life to go, or things that you want to accomplish, especially creatively. But take your time and allow yourself to get situated and aligned. Meaning, dig yourself right now where you are, in the sand, in the grass, in the whatever, right? And feel yourself attracting certain things and waiting for the right moment where everything aligns, your heart, right? Your mind and your gut instincts aligned at the right time to say, okay, go ahead and go do it. This is the time. I feel good. I feel great, right? If you don't feel any one of those things aligned, don't do it. So I want to leave you guys with that, because this is a very brainy, in our heads type of Leo season, which we don't get often. But as we're in our heads, take what you can, and when you start to feel yourself getting a little too deep, a little too intense, a little too serious, laugh at yourself. This whole year with the Jupiter and Gemini transit, one of the best therapies you can do is laugh therapy. Anytime you think you're freaking out about something, you have to remember that life is not that serious. life has never been that serious. As serious as you think it is, it's also the opposite is true, right? So it's not serious at all. And we can go back and forth between those two things pretty much as we want or as much as we need to. And we can laugh at ourselves, we can laugh at everything else that's happening around us with love in our hearts, not in a rude way, like I'm laughing at you, you're a joke, but like, okay, I see how, you know, you've been affected by your childhood, and I see how I have too. All right, let's just let this shit go. Let's just go have some fun. Let's just go play. That's really what this energy is about, because once again, and I'll leave it with you again, the most important part to this whole thing is your purpose is in being, not in doing, and you being who you really want to be and who you really are simultaneously. Because who you want to be might not exactly be who you are, but there's a nice comfortable place where you can do both. You can know that you are who you want to be because you're trying your best, you're trying your hardest, and you can embrace exactly where you are, because it's going to be worth it when you look back, when you are there, right? You're gonna be like, yeah, I actually really love that version of myself too. So I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there for Leo season, and I'll definitely probably come back to talk about some of the other retrogrades. I want to talk more about Chiron retrograde in depth, as well as the Saturn and Neptune retrograde, because they're pretty important, and we'll be going through that for the next few months. So thank you. It's the 29th. There's basically 2 days left, or yeah, day, right? 2 days left. Actually, I never know what it is. Yeah, 2 days left for my sale before I take it down. You can hit me up if you want to check in with yourself, if you want to check in with, you know, anything of the future that you need some extra guidance on. I'm definitely here for you. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next live that I bring to the table. And also, if you did not watch this from the beginning, I'll just upload it. Watch from the beginning. There's some gems. I also got cut off a few times. It's okay. The energy is already weird. And we're going to get through this week. We're going to get through. It's going to ease up a little bit, but then it's going to get more dramatic again. So just have a good time. Do your best. Do your best. Love y'all, and I will see you next time. Peace.